I'm in a vegetative state, but I married the heiress of the Harrison family. It all happened because I accidentally got her pregnant. When everyone assumed I would cling to my status as her husband, I walked away without a second thought, all because of a birthday wish our daughter made. I handed the divorce papers to Ava. She glanced at me with indifference, as if I were a complete stranger. In 5 years of marriage, we hadn't shared a bed since our wedding night. We slept in separate rooms and hardly ever ate a meal together. Despite all this, she played the part of a loving wife in public, flaunting our supposed affection for everyone to see. I work as a legal advisor at the Harrison Corporation, while she is the heiress, Ava Harrison. If this were a novel, I would be the classic example of a man who married into a wealthy family. But our marriage wasn't because the Harrison family owed mine a great debt, nor was it because we were deeply in love or had some arrangement between our parents. It was simply an accident, and because of that, I had to endure the cold stares of my father-in-law and brother-in-law. They treated me with contempt both at home and at the office, acting as if I were a stray dog they didn't even have to bother feeding. I put up with it until today, all because of that one accident. Ava's eyes were cold and distant as she spoke flatly. James, do you really think I would never divorce you? Discussing personal matters during work hours is an $1,800 fine. She was convinced I wasn't genuinely trying to divorce her, but was just trying to pressure her. Her detached expression reminded me of an afternoon a long time ago. 3 months after I started my job, my boss came after me several times because I had unknowingly taken a position he had wanted for his own candidate. He would chew me out over differences in my writing style. Frustrated, I went to a corner of the company courtyard for a smoke. That's where I first met Ava. She was breathtaking in a black, form-fitting dress, her hair swaying gently in the breeze. Her features were crisp and elegant, with full red lips under a delicate nose, and her eyes, framed by thick lashes, were like clear spring water. As I got closer, I caught a faint floral scent. Despite her stunning appearance, she was leaning against the wall, crying. I let out a long breath and impulsively patted her on the shoulder. She looked up at me, startled, her tear-filled eyes glistening. I felt a wave of sympathy and said, "Did you get chewed out too? Let me tell you, the executives here are all idiots. There's no point in getting angry at morons." She frowned and asked, "Are they all really like that?" "Absolutely," I replied. "Let me break it down for you." For the next 10 minutes, while finishing my cigarette, I went down the list of every manager I knew, cursing them out and venting all my frustration. Then I added, "If the company keeps running like this, it's going to go under. Don't be sad. You should curse them out too. Every employee complains about their boss. You'll feel better. If that doesn't work, you can lean on my shoulder." To my surprise, she actually leaned against me, seeking comfort. Her hair, smelling sweet, brushed against my cheek. I could feel her breathing, at first rapid, gradually slow down. My own heart was pounding like it had been hit with a jolt of electricity, and I couldn't get it to settle. I thought it was a perfect afternoon, but then she stood up, smiled, and pointed at my ID badge. "James, right? Slacking off and smoking during work hours. That's an $18 fine." I later found out she had been crying because of her first love, Ethan, but by then I had already fallen completely in love with her. Ava never liked me, not from the very beginning. It was always Ethan, so I didn't bother to argue. "Find me then," I said, not caring. "Ava, I want this divorce finalized as soon as possible." Ava finally glanced down at the papers. "James, if you're trying to pull a fast one on me, at least draft a realistic divorce agreement. All it lists is compensation." Ava didn't know that the amount was the exact sum her father had once offered me to leave her. But I had stayed because I'm a soul traveler completing missions in this world to wake up from the vegetative state I'm in back in my own. After I met her, the system gave me my mission: marry Ava and have a child with her. No matter how hard I tried, I could never win her over. We have no future together. This money is just compensation, long overdue. I don't want to fight about it. The $50 million in the agreement is a trivial amount for the Harrison family, but it's a fortune for me, enough to live a life of luxury. Ava stood up, looking down at me with disdain in her expensive designer chiffon dress, and sneered. You didn't even include a section on our daughter's custody. What? You don't want your precious little girl anymore? I just smiled faintly and said, no. I used to love my daughter, Anna, more than anything. I've been an orphan my whole life, with no parents or siblings, just my own shadow for company. I never truly understood what a family was until the first time I held Anna in my arms. Seeing her tiny face and feeling her warmth, my heart completely melted. The feeling filled my soul, completing a part of me that had always been missing. Every smile and every glance from her brought me a profound joy, making me feel like I finally had a real family. She was someone worth protecting with my own life. I poured all the affection I never received as a child into Anna. I was fiercely protective of her. She was my only blood relative in the world, so if I didn't treasure her, who else would? But Ava had no feelings for Anna, since she was an unplanned pregnancy. Ava's contempt for me extended to our daughter as well. When the doctor placed the newborn Anna beside her, she just glanced at her for a moment before turning away. She looks just like James, was all she said. After that, she left Anna entirely in my care. Her mother didn't love her, so I had to be both a father and a mother to her. People say a daughter is a father's little comfort, keeping him warm. I never knew the love of a family, and I was determined my daughter wouldn't miss out on it. For 5 years, I poured all of my patience and love into every stage of her development. The strange thing was, Anna absolutely adored Ava. She was also gifted with words. When she was just 3, she told me coldly, "Mom doesn't spend time with me because it's your fault, Dad." I dismissed it as a childish comment. When she was 4, she met Ethan, who had just returned from overseas after his divorce. She told her nanny, "No wonder Mom likes Ethan. I like him too. Uncle Ethan is way better than Dad. He's handsome and rich, and he always buys me lots of yummy treats. Not like Dad, who never lets me eat anything fun." All because I wouldn't let her have too much sugar. She would pout and get angry. I overheard her complaining from the kitchen. Swallowing my own hurt feelings, I said gently, "Anna, Daddy will make you some new candy. I'll make it myself. Homemade pear and hawthorn candy. It's delicious and good for you." But she snatched the candy I'd made and threw it right in the trash can. "I don't want your garbage. I want a fancy candy Uncle Ethan brought from Italy. I want to get cavities, so what if I do?" I just stared at her, completely stunned. In that moment, I realized just how much she was her mother's daughter. Neither of them ever responded to my affection. This was especially true on her 5th birthday, when both she and her mother invited Ethan to her party. As I was lighting the candles, I suddenly heard the voice of the system, which had been silent for a long time. "Host, it's been a while. I'm back." Even though no one else could hear it, I instinctively stepped outside. "Host, your mission is complete. You have accumulated enough points to return to your world. You can also choose to stay here. After all, you have a family now. In your original world, you were completely alone." While I was hesitating, Anna made the decision for me. Just as I stepped back into the room, I heard her make her birthday wish. Her voice was clear and loud, with absolutely no consideration for my feelings. "I wish Mom and Dad would get a divorce, so Uncle Ethan could be my new dad." Everyone was shocked into silence. Ava just frowned slightly and said, "Make a different wish." Ethan teased her. "You can't just say that. Did you ask your dad for permission to get a new one? He might spank you." But his eyes were filled with unconcealed pride. I smiled. I turned my thoughts to the system and said, "Take me home. I don't want to wait another second." But the system delivered some bad news. Due to an influx of second and third-time travelers, the central system has implemented a mandatory departure cooling-off period. I was floored. The system cleared its virtual throat. It's similar to the cooling-off period for human divorces. You are required to wait. I blurted out, "Wait for what, damn it?" The system reminded me to use polite language. So I reined myself in and asked, "How long?" 3 years. 3 years? Are you kidding me, system? That's long enough for a whole garden to die. The system paused for a moment before replying, "Host, your insults are surprisingly creative." After 3 seconds of silence, it continued, "As compensation for my long absence, I will increase your point total by 1/3. This means when you awaken from your vegetative state, your body will be in perfect health. Fine, I said. In that case, I'll get this divorce over with first. And that's why I was now standing in Ava's office. Ava, let's get a divorce. She looked up, staring directly into my eyes, and asked with a sneer, James, have you forgotten who it was that came begging to me 5 years ago? Begging me to have Anna, saying you would die if I didn't? Those have been my words. That year, Ava had heard the news that Ethan was getting married. She drank all night and, in her despair, came to find me. She had said, James, look at me. Why am I not good enough for Ethan? Why did he marry someone else? If he can marry another woman, then I can find another man. James, you like me, don't you? You've been waiting for me, haven't you? I nodded. We kissed passionately that night. Despite taking precautions, she accidentally became pregnant with Anna. Her first reaction was to get an abortion. She didn't want a child to be a burden in case Ethan ever came back for her. The child would be an obstacle standing between them. But then the system's voice appeared in my head. If she terminates the pregnancy, the mission will be a failure. You know the consequences, host. Driven by the system's warning and my own deep-seated desires, I begged Ava. If this baby dies, then I'll die too. I swear I'll take care of both of you for the rest of your lives. Without my desperate plea, Anna would never have been born. Ava didn't care about me, and she didn't care about Anna. She only ever cared about Ethan. He was the boy who had lived with her in the orphanage and protected her. Ava had always wanted to marry only him. The day her biological father came to take her from the orphanage, she cried and begged Ethan to wait for her, promising she would marry him. So she always clung to her feelings for Ethan. The next thing she heard about him, however, was that he was married. Much later, I found out that Ava had agreed to my proposal and decided to keep the child, but not because she believed what I had said. It was because of something Ethan had told her. He had said, Ava, what makes you think you're worth me waiting forever for you? I looked at Ava's beautiful face, but all I could think was, I hope I never have to see her again. I said calmly, since both you and our daughter are so fond of Ethan, you can form a new family after the divorce. Everyone gets what they want, right? Ava smiled at me, but I could see the contempt and arrogance hiding just beneath the surface. James, aren't you being a little hypocritical? She said. Do you really think a stunt like this will make me beg you to stay? You're pathetic. And another thing, the child is mine. You tricked me into having her in the first place. The moment you tried to threaten me with this divorce, you forfeited any right you had to be her father. So, if you want me to sign these papers, it's very simple. You have to promise that you will never come near my daughter again, that you will never see her. In the past, a demand like that would have destroyed me, because love makes you vulnerable. She was, after all, my only family, my only child. But now, I don't care about anyone, which means I have no weaknesses. Under her scornful gaze, I replied calmly, fine. She was visibly taken aback, her eyes growing dark. She snatched a pen and quickly signed the agreement. Then she tossed a copy across the desk at me. I picked it up and turned to leave. Ava bit her lip and said, James, take your pathetic act and get out of my sight. And don't ever come back. Fine, I said, my voice unnervingly calm. But then I paused, smiled, and asked her, we haven't legally finalized the divorce yet, and you haven't paid the settlement amount. I'm not leaving until you do. Please pay in advance. Thank you. Ava's face flushed with anger, but she reluctantly signed a check. Watching James walk out of the office without a single backward glance, Ava felt a strange sense of panic. Just then, her assistant, Alicia, came in with some documents. She had been with Ava for years and was both a subordinate and a close friend. Ava, is James really asking for a divorce? She asked. Ava simply nodded, taking the documents from her with a dejected air. Alicia smiled and said, it's just a fight. James would never actually divorce you. He loves you and Anna so much. How could he ever bear to leave? Ava frowned slightly. Whether he leaves or not, he has no right to give me this kind of attitude. Everything he has, he owes to the Harrison family. If he really wants a divorce, I'll have Anna's last name legally changed to Harrison. Alicia just smiled, set down the documents, and left. The office suddenly felt unnervingly quiet. For some reason, she couldn't stop picturing James as he walked away. He seemed like a different person. It wasn't the James she knew. Her mind inexplicably drifted back to that first night with him. She had been nervous and scared, her eyes red from crying, her voice trembling. James had said things to her that she didn't quite understand. He had said, "Ava, I'm not just trying to sleep with you. I genuinely like you, or I wouldn't be here right now. I'll stay by your side and treat you well. Please, treat me well in return, okay?" Even though she didn't fully understand his words, she felt a strange sense of calm and was no longer afraid. She laced her fingers with his and kissed him. Over the years, James had always been gentle and thoughtful. The only thing he ever did that disgusted her was forcing her to keep their child. He had ruined her future with Ethan. He'd said something absurd like, "If the baby is gone, the mission will fail and I'll cease to exist." She felt she had to punish him for it. So for 5 years, she never once treated him with kindness. After all, he had nowhere else to go and would surely stay with her until he died. His words echoed in her ears again. "Ava, I want to have a sweet child with you. The three of us, living together in a cozy little home. Okay?" No, she had never wanted a family. She'd never had one growing up. Her father had only sought her out to use her as a pawn in a strategic marriage. Since she couldn't marry Ethan, she married a low-level employee instead, refusing to submit to her father's plans. The day James asked for a divorce, she found she couldn't focus at the office and went home early. "Where's James?" she asked. The nanny whispered, "Sir moved out this afternoon." Ava felt a surge of panic, but she was careful not to let it show. She just sneered. "He's certainly committed to the act." Then she walked into her bedroom, shutting the door on the rest of the world. After getting the signed agreement, I went back to the house. I packed a small bag and was ready to leave. Anna was sitting in the living room playing on her tablet, a lollipop in her mouth, with colorful wrappers scattered all over the floor around her. She glanced up at me and said flatly, "Mom said I can eat these. Uncle Ethan gave them to me, so mind your own business." I smiled. "I won't say a word. You can eat 100 of them if you want." I squatted down and gently pinched her cheek. "If you get cavities, that's your problem, not mine." "Anna, I'm leaving. Where are you going?" "I'm making room for your new dad. I won't be coming back here again." Anna frowned, her expression an exact copy of her mother's. "You're talking nonsense, Dad. Mom says you're an orphan and that if you weren't clinging to her, you'd have nowhere to go. You're such a useless dad. You're a total failure. Nobody in this family likes you or needs you. Uncle Ethan would never be so pathetic, always either at work or hovering around a kid at home. It's so annoying. You should just leave, Dad. I won't miss you." Then she lowered her head and went back to her game. Watching her turn her back on me so indifferently, I knew that in the past, her words would have cut me to the core. Before, I would have carefully asked her what game she was playing. I would ask if she could teach me if I could play with her. I was a grown man playing children's games, having tea parties, and playing make-believe, giving up so much of my time just to be with her. But all I ever got in return was her contempt. The slightest disagreement would lead to a tantrum and a long bout of sulking. Now, I just don't care anymore. Whoever wants to deal with it is welcome to. "All right, Anna," I said. "I hope you can keep up that tough attitude." With that, I dragged my suitcase out the door. The bright sunlight stung my eyes. A phrase popped into my head, "Turn your face to the sun." Since I only had to wait 3 years, I quit my job. I took the settlement money and found a place to live, renting an apartment in a nice complex. There was no point in buying, since I couldn't take it with me after 3 years anyway. The neighborhood was beautiful, and I had an ocean view from my window. But I could also see someone walking toward the water. It was a little boy, all alone, slowly making his way to the waves. On instinct, I ran downstairs in my slippers, crossed the street and a stretch of grass, and hurried onto the beach. I scooped the little guy up. "Where are your parents?" I asked. The boy looked to be about 3 years old, with big, round eyes like dark grapes. His eyes were wet, as if he'd just been crying, but he didn't say a word and just clutched tightly to his shirt. "Daniel." A woman walked over, her long hair flowing like a waterfall in the ocean breeze. She had a fresh, natural beauty and a gentle smile. I hadn't noticed her before, sitting on a hammock under a nearby tree, watching the boy. Thank you, but don't worry, he wouldn't have gone any further. I was watching him. The woman came closer to take the boy. Daniel, let's go home with Mommy. But the little boy just clung to my leg, pouted his lips, and said hug. The woman looked surprised, then smiled. This is the first time he's ever asked a stranger for a hug. I ruffled the little guy's hair. Since I had nothing better to do, I picked him up and carried him back toward the apartment complex. It turned out they were my next-door neighbors. The woman thought for a moment and said, Mr. Miller, Daniel seems to really like you. I happen to know you're single and not working at the moment. It's just me and my son here. I'm a doctor, and I bake a lot. If you'd be willing. I quickly handed the boy back to her and cut her off. Ma'am, if you're interested in me, you can just say so. You're tall with long legs like a model, and with your fair skin and beautiful face, you could be a celebrity. Why are you acting like some kind of stalker? How do you know so much about me? She looked completely stunned. Mr. Miller, I was going to ask if you could help watch Daniel for me for a little while. I just had to fire his nanny for mistreating him, and I need someone to look after him until I can find a replacement. I saw how good you were with him, so I thought I'd ask. I could bake you some treats as a thank you. I was speechless. What a massive misunderstanding. But then I thought about it and asked, so how did you find out all that information about me? She replied, well, I have your information because I'm your landlord. After she proved her identity, I saw that it was true. I was incredibly embarrassed. But I'm the kind of person who can admit when he's wrong and roll with it. So I said, well, Ms. Landlord, I apologize for coming off like a creep. My mistake. As for her request, I thought about it for a moment and was planning to say no. After all, taking care of kids is a lot of work. I took care of Anna because I was her biological father. I was trying to make up for the childhood I never had, filling a void in my own heart by looking after her. But now, taking care of someone else's child was something I just couldn't do. Kids that age love to run all over the place, and I couldn't afford to be responsible if something happened to him. But in the very next second, she said, you can name your price. So I said, sure thing. When do I start? I couldn't help it. The kid's pleading eyes were impossible to refuse, and I just couldn't bring myself to turn down a mother and son who seemed so alone. Unlike my own daughter, he was very quiet and didn't say much. I looked after him with the same care and effort I had given Anna. He would often just sit obediently on his little stool and watch me play video games. Every time I won a match, he would clap his little hands and cheer me on. You're amazing, James. You're the best. You're crushing it. Sarah, his aunt, would just look on, speechless. I explained to her that I had him just call me James because it's better to be friends with kids than to be an authority figure. Daniel chimed in, James is my best friend, Mom. Don't worry, I'll take good care of him. You can go to work. Sometimes while we were playing, my mind would drift. Anna was never like this. She would always complain, Dad, this is boring. Draw me a picture. Then it would be, Dad, your drawing is ugly. I don't like it. This isn't what I wanted. Then she would rip up the drawing of a little hamster that I'd spent half an hour on. Daniel, on the other hand, was a much more agreeable child. The only odd thing about him was that he often cried out for his parents in his sleep. He would wake up with tears in his eyes every time. I'd wipe them away, and he would look at me, embarrassed, and say, my mom always says boys aren't supposed to cry. Am I being a baby? And I would tell him, everyone gets sad, and it's okay to cry when you're sad. Happiness doesn't care if you're a boy or a girl, and neither does sadness. After that, I'd give him one of the homemade pear and hawthorn lollipops I made. He'd pop it in his mouth, and his eyes would scrunch up into happy little crescents. He'd give me a sticky, fruit-flavored kiss on the cheek. When his aunt, Sarah, got home from work, he'd show off, Mom, James's candy is way better than the stuff you buy. Sometimes he would be hesitant to finish it all at once, taking tiny, slow licks. I'd laugh and say, go on and eat it, Daniel. If you like them, I'll make more. Just don't forget to brush your teeth. The things Anna had thrown away were a treasure to someone else. Before the divorce, my entire life had revolved around Anna. Even with a nanny at home, I'd find myself worrying at work every half hour, wondering if Anna had gotten hurt. Maybe it was because I had Daniel to keep me company, but During those days apart, I rarely thought about Anna or anything related to Ava. Instead, the family butler, Mr. Peterson, contacted me several times. Miss Anna is having trouble sleeping without your bedtime stories. She'll get used to it, I'd reply. Miss Anna has a toothache. Will you come back and be with her? No, I'm not a dentist. A few days later, I unexpectedly ran into Anna. Sarah had gone out of town for a conference and asked me to handle school drop-off and pick up for Daniel for a few days. I had completely forgotten that Daniel's new preschool was the same one Anna attended. I had just gotten Daniel out of the car and was walking him to the entrance when I saw Anna. Ava was still sitting in her car, a cold expression on her face. Anna opened her mouth as if to call out Dad, but the word got caught in her throat. Even though we were divorced, she was still my daughter, and it was a familiar face. So I said hello. Hey, Anna. But she didn't answer, just puffed up her cheeks like an angry little fish and ran into her classroom. The woman in the car, my ex-wife Ava, was also someone I recognized, but I had no intention of speaking to her. To my surprise, she spoke first. James, didn't you explicitly agree that you wouldn't see Anna anymore? It's only been a few days, and you already can't stay away? I let out an angry laugh. Are you insane? Does your family own this preschool? You're allowed to be here, but I'm not? As if I came here hoping to see you. Why don't you just transfer her to a different school tomorrow? I couldn't be bothered to deal with her. From behind me, Ava scoffed. Right, James. Keep up the act. James had been gone for over a month. Ava couldn't understand it. He was such an ordinary man, a placeholder, completely disposable. So why did the house feel so empty without him? Anna cried often. She would cling to the housekeeper, asking when her dad was coming home. Ava couldn't quite make sense of her own feelings for Anna. Perhaps it was because she herself had been abandoned near a dumpster as an infant. So she simply didn't know how to be a mother. Stop crying. You look ugly when you cry. Anna hiccuped, tears still streaming down her face. Mom, can you tell me a bedtime story? No. If you don't want to sleep, then don't. Anna was stunned into silence. In the end, Ava sat by Anna's small bed and read her story. But the more she read, the more frustrated she became. She should be getting her beauty sleep. So why was she sitting here reading a picture book? With a sharp snap, she closed the book. Lights out. Go to sleep or don't, I don't care. She wasn't going to read another page. Anna pouted, but reluctantly slid under the covers. For the first time, Ava felt a little uneasy. Ever since James had left, this feeling of frustration had lingered. It wasn't until she saw him at Anna's preschool a few days later that the irritation seemed to subside a little. She thought to herself, how could he possibly abandon his own daughter? She was his only family. He must have deliberately shown up on one of the rare days that she brought Anna to school herself. He was just being stubborn and proud. He could have had a perfectly good life, but insisted on this divorce. So she pulled Anna out of school, keeping her home from preschool. She wanted James to show up for nothing. If he wanted to see his child, fine. He could come and beg her for the privilege. But 3 days later, Mr. Peterson, the butler, said hesitantly, Ma'am, Mr. Miller still goes to the preschool every day. It seems he's taking another child to school. He hasn't been there specifically to see Miss Anna. Ava was completely stunned. Sarah was true to her word. By my 3rd month of watching Daniel, she had hired a gentle older woman to be his new nanny. I still helped out when I could, just out of habit. Besides, having a personal cheerleader while playing video games was just too nice to give up. Sarah often cooked for me. Maybe it was a habit from her work as a doctor, but she would meticulously deb one fish before cooking and remove every bone from the meat before making a stew. It tasted amazing, though I always felt a little strange eating such perfectly prepared food. After dinner, Daniel would usually play with his magnetic tiles on the little table in the living room. Sarah and I would sit on the sofa and chat. There was a comfortable, peaceful feeling to it all. I couldn't help but ask her something that had been on my mind. Daniel often calls out for his parents when he's asleep. Did something happen to upset him that makes him cry in his dreams? Sarah said softly, Daniel's parents passed away in an accident last year. He just needs some time to process it. I was shocked. Then who are you to him? Are you a kidnapper? Sarah couldn't help but laugh. What are you thinking? I'm his biological aunt. After my brother and his wife passed away, I adopted him. I'm raising him as my own son. He calls me Mom to avoid strange looks from people when we're out. I patted her arm. You're a really good person. Sarah suddenly leaned in closer, her leg almost touching my hand on the cushion. I instinctively pulled my hand back, but when I looked up, I met her bright, almond-shaped eyes, and my heart started to beat faster. I could smell the faint, pleasant scent of her perfume. James, she said, do you think a single mom like me could ever find a man who would like her? Of course you can, I said. You're beautiful, gentle, and kind. Do you like me? She asked. Me? I was at a loss for words. The conversation had taken a sharp turn. I instinctively replied, I mean, why wouldn't I? Sarah just shook her head. A man should never sound so uncertain. I sighed and changed the subject. In 3 years, I have to go back home. Sarah's smile faded, and she looked a little disappointed. James, you still can't forget your ex-wife. I laughed. How could I forget? She's getting married. At that, Sarah's eyelashes fluttered, and her eyes lit up. Her voice was filled with undisguised excitement. Really? Should I send her a huge gift to congratulate her? I was taken aback. Sarah, why are you so excited about my ex-wife's wedding? You're acting like it's your own ex-husband getting remarried. Nearly 6 months had passed with no sign of James backing down. He had left so decisively, so completely, it was as if he had vanished from her world entirely. At first, Ava didn't care much and rarely thought about him. Although Anna would often stare blankly at the little wooden dolls James had carved for her, the nannies took excellent care of the girl. So Ava convinced herself she really didn't miss that man at all. But then a comment from Ethan made her feel inexplicably anxious. He had asked, Ava, if you were picking out a ring, would you want a pink diamond? Soon, rumors began to spread that Ava and Ethan were getting married. She couldn't help but wonder if James had heard the news. Would he misunderstand and decide never to come back? The truth was, Ethan was someone she had liked for a very long time. Perhaps it was just the power of childhood memories. Back then, she had just arrived at the orphanage, a frail and skinny little girl. She looked like a helpless kitten, and the other kids often bullied her. One day, when they were beating her up pretty badly, Ethan ran to get the director, and the group of bullies scattered. Ethan had handed her a piece of fruit candy with a smile. Here, he'd said, it's really sweet. And it was the sweetest candy she had ever tasted in her young life. She never once doubted that Ethan was the person she loved most in the world. But a small part of her heart was starting to disagree. For example, she found herself inexplicably driving to James's apartment complex one day. There, she watched in surprise as James, a beautiful woman, and a cheerful little boy all walked into the building together, smiling and laughing. She was surprised to recognize the woman, but she held on to a sliver of hope, refusing to consider what it might mean. So when James came back out by himself, she stopped him. She put on a playful smile and teased, Husband, why haven't you come home in so long? Are you secretly keeping another woman on the side? As she said this, she reached out to take his arm. James looked stunned. He instinctively pulled his arm away, frowned, and said nothing. Shouldn't he be happy to see her? Why wasn't he taking the opening she was giving him? Seeing his silence, Ava felt a strange sense of being wronged. James, if I was really over you, I wouldn't have come here. If you still want to be in Anna's life, you need to come back home. Otherwise, if I accept Ethan's proposal, you won't get another chance. James's expression was just as calm and unreadable as it had been in her office 6 months ago when he'd asked for the divorce. Congratulations, Ms. Harrison. And thank you, Ms. Harrison, for going out of your way to personally invite me to your wedding. Ava felt a sharp, strange pain in her chest. A fire of pure rage ignited within her. Her face flushed, and she blurted out without thinking. James, do you really think you've hit the jackpot? I was taken aback. What are you talking about? Ava sneered. That woman, Sarah, she's from the Walton family here in Miami. As soon as she said it, I remembered. The Walton family had often caused trouble for the Harrisons, using their political connections to stir things up. Half of the legal disputes our department had to handle were because of the Walton schemes. Sarah may seem like just some doctor, but she's actually a Walton. Do you really think someone from her family would marry a divorced man like you? I frowned. So what if I'm divorced? Aren't you about to be? Isn't your precious Ethan divorced too? That doesn't seem to stop you from chasing him. Ava, I know what your family has always thought of me, but take a good look at yourself. You were married to me, but thinking about another man. Now you're divorced, and you're coming back to your ex-husband. Do you still have this fantasy that you're some pure maiden saving herself for her one true love? Do you think you're some princess that everyone has to worship, even after you've left them? Do you really think I should still be devoted to you? Ava, let me ask you, who's the one who thinks they've hit the jackpot? You think Ethan is the love of your life? You should go get yourself checked out. You probably don't even know what kind of diseases you've picked up from him. Actually, you and Ethan are a perfect match. Ava's face turned bright red, her eyes shining with unshed tears as she bit her lip, speechless. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Ignoring her shocked expression, I turned and walked away. Unexpectedly, I nearly ran right into Sarah, who had clearly been eavesdropping for who knows how long. I cleared my throat. I'm usually a much nicer person than that. Do you believe me? Sarah nodded. I believe you. As we started walking, we shared an unexplainable, knowing smile. I asked her, "What are you smiling about?" "James, that was a pretty impressive takedown back there. And for the record, I think you made some very good points." I have to admit, being praised by a beautiful woman, especially one who was clearly interested in me, was a huge boost to my ego. I started walking a little faster. Sarah kept pace beside me. "James, the most important thing you should know is that who I marry is my decision, and has nothing to do with the Walton family." "James, did you hear me?" A week before Ava's wedding, Anna came to see me unexpectedly, accompanied by the housekeeper. Anna was almost 8 now. She had lost her baby fat and gotten taller, and she was starting to look more and more like her mother. "Hi, Anna." Her eyes were a little red. "Dad," she said quietly. I led her upstairs to my apartment. "Did your mother say it was okay for you to come?" I knew the housekeeper would never have dared to bring Anna here without Ava's permission. Anna nodded. "Dad, do you just not want me at all anymore?" I smiled. "I never stopped wanting you, Anna. It was always you who didn't want me. Then why don't you come home?" I sighed. "I divorced your mother. And when people get divorced, they don't live together anymore." Anna turned her head away, staring at the floor. "Can't you come back just for me? How can you say you don't want me?" "Anna, why would I come back for you?" Even though Anna was young, she was very bright. I never talked down to her like a little kid because I knew she could understand. "I made a mistake for a long time," I told her. "I thought I was doing what was best for other people, including you and your mom. But that's just a way of forcing your own ideas on someone, isn't it? I thought spending time with you was what was best for you, but you didn't want my company. I thought not letting you eat candy was good for you because it would prevent cavities, but you didn't care about getting cavities. To truly be good to someone, you have to first understand what they actually want. If my favorite fruit is a peach, and you give me an apple, are you really being good to me? No. Being good to someone means meeting their needs, not giving them what you think they need. Even if you get cavities one day and regret it, and you think back and realize I was right, it doesn't change the fact that at the time, when you didn't care, my actions weren't good for you. So, a person has to figure out what they want for themselves before they can understand what other people want. I have to live for myself first, before I can truly care for anyone else. Otherwise, it's just pointless self-sacrifice. Compared to what you want, I'm more concerned with what I want now. What do I get out of being good to you? Why shouldn't I focus on being good to the people who are good to me? So no, I won't come back for you. If you need child support, have your mother contact my lawyer." Anna seemed to understand, at least a little. She lowered her head in frustration and didn't say anything else. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, a small blur shot past me and into my arms. James, I want some of your pear candy." Daniel then noticed Anna and blinked. "James, is this pretty girl your daughter?" I nodded with a smile. Daniel grabbed a handful of the pear candies from a bowl on the table and offered them to Anna. "Here, you should try one. James makes them himself, and they're really good. They're healthy and yummy, way better than the store-bought kind." Anna took the candy and suddenly burst into tears. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. I knew she was remembering the time she had thrown the candy I'd made for her into the trash. Sometimes, once you've thrown something away, you can never get it back. Ava married Ethan. The wedding was incredibly grand and lavish, becoming the top trending topic in all of Miami. In the photos, Ethan was beaming with happiness, but Ava's smile looked completely forced. Anna, who was the flower girl in an exquisite little dress, wore an expression that was identical to her mother's. In the end, the birthday wish she'd made when she was 5 had finally come true. All I could think was, well, daughter, sometimes you have to live with the consequences of your own wishes. Strangely enough, the people who seemed happiest about Ava's wedding were Sarah and Daniel. The two of them insisted on taking me to a cabin out of town for a mini vacation. James, the stars are so beautiful out there, and we can set off fireworks. Daniel spun around in happy circles. I love fireworks more than anything. Seeing him gradually emerge from the shadow of his parents' death and become happier each day made me feel genuinely happy too. Under the night sky, we grilled food and ate sliced watermelon. The sky was filled with countless stars. Fireflies blinked around us with their glowing tails, and we could hear frogs croaking in a nearby pond. This was the kind of life I had always wanted. As Daniel handed me a slice of watermelon, he asked, "James, your ex-wife got married. Are you sad?" I nearly choked on the piece of fruit. "Who told you to ask that?" "Mom didn't tell me to. I wanted to know." I saw Sarah's shoulders tremble slightly from where she was standing. "James, don't be sad," Daniel continued. "You still have us. Even if that pretty girl has a new dad, you still have me. Can I be your son from now on? I'll call you James, and you can call me son. How about it?" I scratched my head. It didn't sound like a bad deal. I pinched his chubby little cheek and said, "All right, what else is on your mind? You might as well get it all out now." Daniel cleared his throat like a little old man. "If you think just having me as a son isn't enough, then I'll give you my mom to be your wife." This time, my hand actually trembled a little. This kid was unbelievable. As if the situation wasn't awkward enough, Daniel then shouted to Sarah, who was pretending to water flowers but was actually just pouring water on the ground. "Right, Mom? Can you handle that job? Can you be James's wife?" Sarah gave a soft hum in reply, but the tips of her ears turned red. She looked up at the sky, then at Daniel, then at the trees and flowers, anywhere but at me. Daniel jumped up and down with joy, running circles around Sarah and shouting, "Mom, you're my aunt again. I have a dad again." Happy times always seem to fly by. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. To be honest, those 3 years after the divorce were some of the best of my life. My only regret was that I hadn't divorced Ava sooner. Host, on the 3rd of next month, at 1,600 hours, the transfer procedure will commence. State your intention. Stay or leave. The system seemed surprised by my choice. "Are you certain you wish to leave?" Ava couldn't tell if she had married Ethan because she truly liked him more, or if she had done it just to spite James. Married life was bland. Nothing had changed, and yet everything was different. She developed a strange habit of going to bars and drinking, sometimes not coming home at all. A few glasses of hard liquor would numb her senses and make her feel alive for a little while. Otherwise, when she was sober, she always felt the lingering shadow of James's presence in her life. "It's so strange," she'd slur. "How do I keep seeing James when I'm drunk?" A cold voice, nothing like James's gentle tone, would reply, "I'm Ethan." Of course I'm not James. "Ava, if you still have feelings for James, then why did you marry me?" The alcohol gave her a splitting headache, making it impossible to think clearly about a question. Did she have feelings for James? No, of course not. She had always been indifferent to James, thinking he was completely disposable. Hadn't she? She vaguely recalled that when Ethan had gotten married overseas, she had only been a little sad. She hadn't spent her days regretting that she hadn't chased after him sooner. But after divorcing James, it was like being cut with a dull knife, a slow, tearing pain that she was only now beginning to truly feel. She realized she wanted a warm, cozy home too. Before, she had stubbornly insisted she didn't need one. "Do you want a divorce?" Ethan finally asked. The days of constant fighting and insults were exhausting. He had to be tired of it too. It turned out that not being in love was an incredibly draining experience. Ethan gritted his teeth, his eyes bloodshot. "Ava, You're the one who insisted on this marriage. I will never let you go, not even if I die. We'll just make each other miserable for the rest of our lives. Neither of us gets to be happy." Ethan stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Ava looked up and saw Anna across the hall, quietly closing her bedroom door with a blank expression on her face. Was this even a home anymore? It felt like three strangers living under the same roof. She hysterically swept a wine glass off the table. It shattered on the floor. Once something is broken, it can never be made whole again. "James," she whispered to the empty room, "I really thought you would choose to stay." The night before I was scheduled to leave, I couldn't sleep. It felt just like being a little kid the night before a big trip. I had already told Anna and Daniel that I was leaving. Anna's expression had been indifferent. Only when I said the words out loud did her eyes get a little red. "Dad, I can't ask you to stay. You have to live for yourself first. I respect your decision. Thank you for understanding, Anna. We are father and daughter, after all. There's no deep-seated hatred between us, but we aren't close either. The bond of family can't be broken. This kind of distant, mutual respect felt right for us." Daniel's eyes were red and puffy from crying, but he was still trying to be brave. "It's okay, James. If you have to go home, then you should go. But you have to promise to think about me sometimes, okay?" Then he started sobbing again. I wiped his tears away, not knowing what to say. "You're talking like I'm dying. I'm just going home, buddy. Don't cry so much." Daniel pouted. "My mom is crying in secret, too." I paused. I hadn't seen Sarah in over a week. I'd heard things were crazy at the hospital and that she barely had time to sleep. I thought about it for a moment and decided I should go see her one last time. I had never seen the hospital in such chaos. There was blood splattered all over one of the walls. A team of doctors and nurses were rushing a patient on a gurney toward an operating room. I caught a glimpse of the person on the gurney. They were wearing a white doctor's coat. My eyes widened in shock. Who was it? I couldn't get close enough to see, but someone nearby told me what happened. A middle-aged patient attacked a doctor and then jumped from a window to his death. The doctor who got stabbed, Dr. Evans, she's one of the best, a really good person. It's just heartbreaking. My heart was pounding in my chest. I had met Dr. Evans before. She was Sarah's colleague and a good friend, a very gentle and kind woman. Then I heard a few angry voices coming from a group of family members nearby. That Dr. Davis is so cold-hearted. She didn't try to save Dr. Evans. She saved the murderer instead. Maybe she was just jealous that Dr. Evans is a better surgeon. They didn't know what they were talking about. Sarah wasn't like that at all. I didn't have the energy to argue with them. I just waited anxiously for news from the surgery. Finally, the operating room doors opened, and two pieces of good news came out. Dr. Evans was saved. Her injuries weren't life-threatening. It was a medical miracle. The attacker had also been saved by Sarah. I finally let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Now, I had the energy to turn to those ignorant family members. What do you think this is? A marketplace where you can pick and choose who gets medical care? Do doctors get to decide who lives and dies based on their personal feelings? If the hospital had refused to treat that man, who would be responsible when he died? The hospital assigned a doctor to his case. Was she supposed to refuse? If he had died because a doctor refused to treat him, who would take the blame? It's easy for you to stand here and criticize, but why didn't you try to stop the doctors from saving him? Why didn't you physically intervene if you felt so strongly? Is it because you were afraid of the consequences? The group of people turned red and fell silent. I turned around and, of course, found Sarah eavesdropping again. She looked completely exhausted, but she gave me a bright smile. "James, thank you for sticking up for me." I was about to get blamed for something completely out of my control. In a more private corner, she asked me quietly, "You came here to tell me you've decided not to leave tomorrow, right?" I knew she was talking about my return to my own world. I smiled sadly. "I'm sorry, but I'm leaving tomorrow." Today was Ethan's birthday, and he'd thrown himself a lavish party at their mansion, inviting dozens of young models. He was in his element, surrounded by beautiful women, and Ava just let him be. She didn't care, so it didn't matter. The day before, Anna had told the housekeeper she was going to see James, and Ava had let her go. Anna spoke more to the housekeeper these days than to her own mother. Today, Anna unexpectedly knocked on Ava's bedroom door. Her eyes were red. as if she'd been crying. Ava frowned. Haven't I told you that you look ugly when you cry? You were crying yesterday, and now you're crying again. Anna's voice was barely a whisper. Dad is leaving today. He's going back to his real home, and he's never coming back. After saying this, Anna turned and left. Ava just sat there for a long time before the words sank in. Her heart began to race with an inexplicable panic. She had a terrible feeling that James was serious, that this system of his was really taking him away. At this point, she was willing to believe anything. Ava grabbed her car keys from the table and rushed downstairs. Just as she pulled open the front door, Ethan was standing there. He stepped inside and slammed the door shut behind him. Then he slapped her hard across the face. After the slap, he grabbed her face in his hand and snarled, Ava, have you ever once considered my feelings? You've completely humiliated me. You think about your ex when you're with me, and you thought about me when you were with your ex. Have you no shame at all? You're disgusting. Seeing you like this makes me sick to my stomach. Do you have any idea how to be a mother or a wife? Who are you putting on this emotional act for? Ava didn't say a word. At this point, she had no energy left to argue. She didn't want to process what Ethan was saying, or maybe she just couldn't. All she could feel was the burning sting on her cheek, tears welling in her eyes, but refusing to fall. She felt a desperate anxiety, as if time was running out, but Ethan was blocking the door, refusing to move. She pulled at him, pushed him, shouted, making a scene and smearing her makeup. She screamed, Move! Get out of my way! Let me leave! But no matter what she did, she couldn't get him to budge. Finally, she backed away, standing by the window, and sneered at him. Ethan, did you ever stop to consider my feelings? All the women you've been with. Alicia, Sophia, you could have anyone. Why did you have to sleep with my friends? The next second, she threw open the window and jumped. It was only a one-story drop. There was no time left. If she didn't get out of there right now, she felt like she would lose her mind. Ignoring the sharp pain from the landing, she crawled to her car. She slammed her foot on the accelerator. Maybe this was her last chance. She prayed that James would stay. But things did not go the way she hoped. Speeding recklessly around a blind corner, she smashed head-on into an oncoming sports car. With a piercing shriek of metal, she lost complete control of the car. Her consciousness began to fade. The airbag deployed, and she could feel warm blood dripping from a gash on her forehead. One of her legs was pinned beneath the dashboard, probably shattered. This was the first time Ava had truly cried since the divorce, sobbing like a lost child. She knew, with a terrible certainty, that she was out of chances. There was no chance left to keep James. Today was the day I was supposed to leave. But I didn't, and nobody knew it yet. I finally found Sarah and Daniel on the beach as the sun was setting. Sarah was standing as still as a statue, silently gazing out at the distant horizon. Her expression was filled with a lonely sadness. Daniel was using the little plastic shovel I'd given him to dig in the sand, muttering to himself as he worked. I walked up quietly behind him and had a chuckle when I heard what he was saying. Okay, little crab, don't you dare pinch me. James is gone, and I'm thinking of 100 happy things so I don't cry. If Mom can be brave, then I can be brave too. But if you pinch me and it hurts, I'm definitely going to cry. I squatted down and gently shooed the little crabs away from his sandcastle. You can dig now, little man. Daniel stared at me, his eyes wide with shock. Then he whirled around and shouted, Mom, come quick. I think I'm hallucinating. I can see James standing in the sunset. A slow, faint smile spread across Sarah's face, though the corners of her eyes were red. It's real, Daniel. James is back. Daniel was overjoyed. James, you're not leaving? Right. Sarah tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Didn't you say you were leaving today? I pointed to a cake box sitting on our beach blanket. It's your birthday today. Am I not allowed to go out and buy a cake? Sarah's smile bloomed, wide and beautiful. Daniel ran in happy circles on the sand, letting the waves chase his little feet and make joyful splashes. Sarah's eyes were sparkling. So, you didn't delay your trip home because of us, did you? Because that wouldn't be right. I smiled. Sarah, you're being a little coy. Of course it wasn't because of you. It's because for now I can't go back. Yesterday at the hospital, The system had been grumbling in my head. You are so fickle. Last month you were desperate to leave, and now you want to stay. System. I had asked, can you do something for me? Can I use my points to save Dr. Evans's life? The system had already told me that in the original timeline, Dr. Evans couldn't be saved and was supposed to die. Affirmative, host. But be advised, once this action is confirmed, your point total will be reset to 0. You will have nothing left. You will be unable to return home. That's fine, system. I'll just earn more. And if that's not enough, I could just borrow some points from you. The system was furious. You insolent human. Do not even think about touching my points. I am a selfish and miserly system. No, your kind system. I knew there had never really been a 3-year cooling-off period. The system had just made that up. The main server would never implement such a ridiculous rule. More than anyone, the system wanted me to be happy. In my original world, I was just a person in a coma, with no friends or family to speak of. The system hoped that if I ever woke up, I would have found real happiness in this world first. Even the apartment I was living in now had been found with the system's help. Host, this location is optimal. I predict we will both prosper here. Why would a system need to prosper? It was just its clumsy way of trying to introduce me to people who could bring me happiness. The system's efforts had paid off, and I was grateful to it for helping me meet Sarah and Daniel. I made a deal with the system, I explained. I used all my points to save Dr. Evans's life. So I can't leave now. When I finished speaking, Sarah froze for a second, and then she threw her arms around me. I could feel her warm tears streaming down my neck. James, thank you, she sobbed. You're a really, really good person. Daniel clapped and laughed nearby. Mom, seriously? You're a grown-up and you cry more than I do. I gently pushed her back and smiled. Hey now, with all those tears, are you trying to flood the beach? I laughed, and Daniel joined in. As the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, the three of us, bathed in the soft twilight, walked home together. To our home.